Hey everyone, welcome back to another edition of the Broad Podcaster with me, Jennifer Fierro, and Art Dlugach, the voice of the Llano Yellow Jackets. Art, thanks for joining us for our weekly discussion on what's happening in Highland Lake sports. We have plenty to go over, especially when one talks about 7-on-7 in the Lineman's Challenge at Burnet, the state qualifying 7-on-7 tournament last week. Let's go ahead and start with 7-on-7 here.
Go right ahead.
Well, I know that Llano, between Burnet and Llano, had the better record, 2-1 for the Yellow Jackets. In one pool, they finished second in their pool. Burnet was in the other pool, and they went 1-2 in pool play.
And one team from all the schools qualifies for the state championships, and that was Lorena, a state champion already in its classification from this past season, beating Lago Vista in the state semis, and which is in Llano's district, or was till they went up, and beating a powerful Brock in the finals. So Lorena is formidable. Llano going 2-1, beating Brownwood and Somerset was impressive.
Yeah, yes it was. Burnet got an overtime win against Taylor, 26-25. Burnet came from behind to win that game. They got the touchdown at the end to win it and to send it to overtime. Then Tanner O'Hare, who's going to be the new quarterbacks coach for the Bulldogs in 2022, found Grant Jones for the touchdown to tie Taylor in overtime, and then found Jones again for the 2-point pass to win it at 26-25.
O'Hare is going to be the quarterback?
The quarterback.
Okay.
The quarterback, yeah.
Okay.
And they had Jones lined up at receiver. Now, towards the end of the day, when the Bulldogs were playing McGregor the last game in their pool, Tanner O'Hare took some snaps in at quarterback, and then O'Hare snapped the ball to Jones, and it looks like Jones right now is the backup quarterback for the Bulldogs.
All right, and Llano and Burnet will resume their rivalry in the fall. I was really glad to see that. I've been kidding Coach Green about not getting Burnet on the schedule. And then at the toward the end of the day, when they needed, they wanted to be way ahead and get an opponent for that slot, that open slot. Burnet was available, and I think it's going to benefit the fans and the players and the schools a great deal.
Yeah, and we'll get into all that a little bit more. Did want to make mention, like we said, Llano went 2-1, beating Brownwood 12-6. The Yellow Jackets actually came from behind to win that game. They were down 6-0 in the first half. Llano actually got to the Lions, inside the Lions' red zone a couple of times in the first half, could not convert and score. Then Brownwood scored on the last possession of the first half to take a 6-0 lead. Hats off to the Yellow Jacket defense for not giving up more than 6 points. I was very impressed with the Llano defense throughout the day, and especially in that game. Shut out the Lions in the second half, and then the Yellow Jackets did just enough in the second half to win that game. They also ended up beating Somerset 15-13 in overtime. That game was really interesting because the Yellow Jackets were behind by a touchdown, got a pick six on the last play of regulation to send it into overtime, and then ended up beating Somerset in overtime to move to 2 wins in their pool.
Clarifying that when she talks about defense 7-on-7, that is secondary, because nobody rushes the passer. The passer has 4 seconds to get rid of the ball, and there's no running, of course, in 7-on-7. And Coach Green said, I'll throw this in, that Briggs Green, his son, is making progress as the probable starting quarterback in the fall. And I'll throw this note in. He will succeed his brother, if he does start, as brother follows brother, starting quarterback for the Jackets. Maddox is the one who has graduated. And, you know, I don't remember that happening in the 24 years I've been in Llano.
I can tell you that it happened in Marble Falls one time in the 16 years I've been back. And that was with Cord Warner and his 2 sons, Thor and Zed.
Right.
Back to back.
Very good. I know Cord very well, and remember those boys pretty well.
Yeah, I will say this, and this might be a fun story to write. Go to TexasChalkTalk.com to read stories on everything Art and I are talking about and all things Highland Lake sports. I will say it's very special because I did talk to Coach Green about that on Saturday and watching Briggs play, that it's just a special time when you are especially if you are a head coach and an offensive-minded head coach, when your son is also the starting quarterback. It's just very, very special. That might be worth my time here in the next few weeks as things start to really slow down in July.
Oh, I think that'd be terrific. And you can not needle, it's part of the story. Coach Green was a quarterback for Brownwood in the 90s and was quarterback for a part of his time at Howard Payne, which of course is in Brownwood, and he was also a pitcher.
Yeah.
So
we'll throw all of that in.
It's all in the genes.
I do want to mention one more thing because I think this is important. Burnet is going to the Brownwood State qualifying tournament on Saturday, June 4th. Brownwood has already qualified for state, had already qualified before they came to Burnet last week. And then the Yellow Jackets are going to the Jordanton State qualifying tournament also on June 4th. Their pool is not any easier. Wimberley, Lago Vista, and Pleasanton, all Class 4A members.
Well, Wimberley, a longtime rival that Llano has not played in the last couple of years, we know how tough they are. And Jordanton was, in the last couple of years, has been in the companion district with Llano, with the Jackets playing a team in that district in the playoffs.
The losses for the Bulldogs in their pool, like I said, they beat Taylor 26-25 in overtime, lost to Gatesville 27-13, and lost to McGregor 30-12. McGregor just used their speed and did lots of fly routes and post routes, skinny post routes to score. And they just scored and got a lot of their points that way. Lorena, what made them so effective? Their quarterback worked the middle of the field, took short passes, and was methodical in moving the ball down the field and taking what was available to him. A lot like Tom Brady, can I throw that in?
Lorena located near Waco, in case a few of you didn't know that.
Okay. All right. I will write a separate piece on this. I do think the 15-13 scores, 26-25 scores, 12-6 scores, I had a chance to ask Coach Green and Coach Wood about the low scores, and both of those men are offensive-minded coaches. They came up through the offensive side of football. They think that the rule changes from the 7-on-7 committee has helped a lot. Instead of having 20-minute halves now, you have 15-minute halves with running clocks just like you did before. They think that as a result of that, you get 2 fewer offensive possessions in each half because of that 5-minute difference. The other thing is, and I asked this, have the defenses caught up to the offenses? That's always a question that I have. And plainly, this is what they tell me. What you're seeing now with the defenses, which is what we've always seen before, they're dropping 7 back into coverage. You have 5 receivers. You've got 1 kid who snaps the ball to the quarterback, and the quarterback can't run. So automatically the numbers have always favored the defenses, but it just seems like with things slowing down, maybe with the shorter halves.
I think that's a big part of it. We discussed this before coming on the air here for the podcast, and she held that back on me. I didn't know they had cut the time of the halves down, because definitely you're right. The scores are smaller than they used to be, but I think that's a big reason.
Well, I will say at a place like Burnet, where you're playing, in the morning wasn't bad. The afternoon got a little warm. And especially when you've got the turf out there and it's starting to absorb that heat. I think that it helps when things slow down because those scores are a little closer towards the end of the day as opposed to the beginning of the day. It's hot. Kids are starting to try to hydrate, and kids are starting to lose their energy, if you will. And I will say this, the two teams that played each other, well, I don't remember if McGregor, Lorena brought a good group of kids. I bet they brought 20 kids with them. I think McGregor may have had 3 or 4 reserves, and that was it for 7-on-7. So it looked like they brought no more than about 11 or 12.
When you talk about how hot it was or anything about football, and someone who never played is listening to this, it's wearing me out.
Okay, well, find your energy level because we still got to talk about the Burnet Lineman's Challenge in the next segment. Stay with us. Jennifer Fierro, the broad podcaster here in the Highland Lakes with the voice of the Llano Yellow Jackets, Art Dlugach. We'll be right back.